Big thank you to KiwiCo for sponsoring today's video. More on them in a bit. Most mornings I wake up and have a cup of coffee. I don't really have a plan necessarily for what I'm going to feed all of the hungry kiddos. And that is kind of how life is in the summer. There's so much going on, but yet people still need to eat. Laundry still needs to get washed. Homes still need to maintain a somewhat acceptable level of cleanliness, and we still want to enjoy all of the summer things going on. So today I have plans to go with a friend to the pool this afternoon. We have to stop by the build site and check on all of that. But right now I need to make some breakfast for some kids that are all telling me just how hungry they are. We have milk delivery today, so we're actually 100% out of milk. I do have a few cans of coconut cream in the pantry from who knows when. I don't remember when or why I had coconut cream, but it actually is a really great fallback for when we're out of milk for something like waffles or pancakes or even a smoothie. A few days ago, we had no milk again, and I had some leftover ice cream in the freezer, lots of frozen fruit. We also had just a tiny bit of yogurt and coconut cream. So I made a smoothie with all of those things plus some protein powder. So today I am using a can of coconut cream instead of milk. I'm making whole grain waffles. I had a little bit of whole grain einkorn left and a little bit of spelt. So I'm just doing a little combination of the two. I know when you first get started with whole grains, it's hard to know how much you should substitute out one for one. So say you have a favorite waffle recipe or even a whole grain waffle recipe that calls for whole wheat flour. Possibly they are testing that with flour from the store. And you're wondering, okay, but my stuff always seems a little bit thin or like there's not enough flour. One thing I've learned about whole grains and baking and cooking with them is they come out of the mill very, very fluffy and light. So if you were to weigh a cup of flour that came directly out of a whole grain bag of flour from the store that has been compacted through all of the transporting of it, and a cup of flour that's fresh and fluffy out of the mill, especially when it's an ancient grain like einkorn or spelt, it can be really fluffy. You'll notice that the weight's very different. So I am constantly just doing 140 grams for substitution. So if a recipe calls for, say, 3 cups of flour, then I would do 420 grams of freshly milled, whatever flour I'm using, whether that's rye or einkorn or kamut, spelt, any combination of those, or even a hard white wheat berry, just equaling 420 grams and then following the rest of the recipe as indicated. With that, it also makes for a very flexible recipe. You can throw in lots of different kinds of whole grains and be creative with it. Sometimes on these super hot, humid Missouri days, we like to take a little break inside and let the kids do something that isn't screens, but that also keeps their minds engaged. I want to tell you about today's video sponsor, KiwiCo. KiwiCo has monthly crates that are designed for all ages, learning activities that are age appropriate for every single one of our kiddos from the oldest to the youngest. I really like that KiwiCo offers books that go with each of the crates that help them to dig deeper into what they are learning. Since they're age appropriate, they can work on them themselves or with each other. It's also a great way for parents to interact and learn something with their kids. We really in our family like to only get out a few at a time and have the children work together. That's one way we can stretch them further and learn as much as possible from them. KiwiCo also has some awesome projects to encourage kids to get outside and play, from building their own splash blasters to launching their own rocket. KiwiCo gives kids everything they need to have outdoor fun and learn along the way. And they really keep their brains engaged with STEM, science, technology, engineering, math activities. I especially like this globe that my oldest couple children worked on. The middle kids enjoyed the ocean quest and learning all about the ocean. They also had a lot of fun and learned a lot through the wind play lab. Everybody wanted to get in on that one. Our kids get really excited when they see that KiwiCo has arrived. If you want to give your kids the magic of KiwiCo, use my link, kiwico.com/farmhouseyt plus my code farmhouse to get 50% off off your first monthly crate for kids ages 3 and up. For the Panda crate, which is for under that age, you can also get 20% off with my link. I'll also leave it linked down in the description box below. There's always consistent work to be done year-round, whether it's summertime and there are lots of things going on, whether it's a postpartum season, which is quickly approaching for me soon here as we will have our baby in September. And the simplest way that I can stay on top of all the chores that need to be done, from making food, maintaining a relatively clean kitchen with washed dishes and laundry that doesn't pile up, is by staying minimal and consistent. So in the kitchen, this looks like running the dishwasher 3 times a day, because if we didn't, we wouldn't in our home even have enough dishes to eat 3 times a day if we didn't do the dishes in between time. In our laundry room, if we didn't do laundry once or twice a day and instead did the once a week laundry day, there wouldn't be enough clothes for any of us to wear. It's amazing how much having a smaller amount of things and just maintaining them and keeping them clean simplifies life and makes the home less of a job. I talk about our laundry routine a lot here, but I think that's because it has helped us so much and I get lots of questions about it still. So here in our laundry room, we store 5 of our children's clothing just completely, 3 dresser drawers and 2 baskets, so that we can sit here at the dryer and in just a couple minutes have everything put away and ready to go for someone to wear again. We have 2 larger baskets that do leave this room that the older kids can put away themselves and that Luke and I can put away our own stuff. And then the 5 youngest kids all just get dressed right in here, throw their dirty clothes directly into the wash. We have a pile for socks and a pile for tea towels that are just steps away from the laundry room. And then we keep the towels right here in the laundry room. So all resistance has been taken out of the process and it feels easy to stay on top of, which feels great any time of year, but especially in the summer when we're trying to just get the housework done and get out of there. And when we're coming home from the pool with bins of wet towels and suits, we also store all of those right in the laundry room. It just makes it a little hub and very efficient. I've shared a few videos on here of the types of meals that I make when I don't have any kind of plan. Well, this is definitely one of those days, but we need to head over to the farm because there are a few things that we need to do there. And I'm going to give you a little building update while we're there. So I'm going to get some rice going so it can sit on simmer on the stove and be ready when we get home, so I can make a quick ground beef recipe to put over rice. First, we do have milk delivery, and so I'm going to get the jars out there so that if that happens while we're gone, she can grab the jars and drop off some milk and restock us for the week so we don't have to keep using that coconut cream. We'll rely on it when we have to, but we definitely prefer just regular milk. Part of my homemaking, I guess we can call it that, we're making a home routine right now, is heading out to our farm every morning and checking in on so many things. I'm always amazed at how many things I have to discuss with the builders every single day. Seems like we'd run out of things to talk about. But I'm gonna show you the upstairs now of this garage loft because we got the stairs in. So this is how the staircase goes up, kind of frames this window here and then barely misses this window here. Once it's in, there'll be a bit of a casing around it, so it works out great. The garage ceiling is pretty tall, so this is quite a long staircase. I think it's 10 feet tall in here, so great space. And then since we did the gambrel style roof, we have a lot of headspace up here. Now this room won't have the best lighting, so there's a window here. It's supposed to mimic the look of a hay door. So we're doing a Dutch door with a window on top, and then we have the window back here. So it won't have the greatest lighting, but it'll be a conditioned space. We're gonna use mini splits to heat it up here. And then we have one small framed in bathroom. So we're thinking it'll be a great space for Luke and the boys to put whatever evolves over the years. I think for a while, it could be a space in the winter time if they wanted to come out here and do some homeschool, or even the summer, or possibly some kind of game room, or I don't even know. We wanted some space for that kind of thing. So above the garage made sense, especially since we were doing a barn look. This is what would be a hayloft and what will be a hayloft over on the other real barn, but instead just some bonus space. This is the little tiny bathroom. So this here, I'm not sure what we're doing here. I don't think there was meant to be framing here, but I'm realizing that I want there to be a door you walk in. Otherwise, it'd be very hard to heat and cool this. So there'll probably be a wall here with a door entering into this space. Well, I don't mind heating some of this garage, but I don't want to heat it to the level that you'd want to heat a conditioned space. Another thing that's arrived that I'm excited about, it's just kind of sitting here right now, unfortunately just getting wet, are the porch columns. I mentioned before, Brent Hull helped me to design the porch and the farmhouse, and these are polystone columns from Chadsworth Columns. They're meant to look like wood, but also be really durable and structurally supportive. The capitals and the bases are what makes them really pretty. Hopefully it's okay that they're getting this wet. So I don't know how quick we're supposed to paint these. Should probably look into that. They feel fine, I think. So those 6 columns will go here. I'll pop a picture here of the plan so you can kind of see what this is all supposed to look like with the columns. I don't think in this view you can see the pilasters, but I'll show a little view where you can see the pilasters, which are sort of just like half columns that I've noticed on all of our old porches we've lived in. We're doing a matching rectangular column for the pilasters, whereas round for the front ones. This is historically accurate. I think it'll add a really nice detail. Another exciting thing, the brick was delivered. It's all covered, but I want to show you the brick. It was delivered yesterday. They'll start actually laying it this weekend. We went with Bell Tower by Hebron. Here you can kind of see it here really well. Has a nice historic look. Now we are doing chase chimneys. So when you're doing a wood stove, a wood burning stove, you can just run an 8-inch chimney right out, just the pipe, basically. Doesn't have to have anything around it. So really these chimneys are just a decorative covering for the real chimney. These are just a chase. Comes in once with the brick, and the one on the other side comes in 2 spots. And then this one here tapers in there as well. It's kind of hard to see from this angle. Another big update is the HVAC is in. So I'll show you how that was run upstairs in the attic, and then also down here. Pretty standard basement stuff down here. But then up in the attic, it services the 2nd floor from the attic. So this is the sunroom, and then back there is all the back porch, and then this is obviously all the main house to service the 1st level. So this is the unit that services the 2nd floor, and then we just start running it in the attic on the sides here. I'm planning to put a curtain here. It's just the only thing we can do. Some kind of sliding door or something in case, you know, you'd have to access this furnace. But since this would be a very infrequently used thing, I would think a curtain would be both pretty and, you know, curtains can be annoying if they're used all the time. Just to have a curtain here in this hall and then the 2 doors to access the attic. One of those modern things that aren't exactly beautiful, but you're happy to have it. It's the chimney from up here, or the chase rather. It's not really a chimney. I'm trying to use my technical terms. So the way this works is they put a drywall that's fire resistant, and then you just need 2 inches clearance on any side of the chimney pipe. Then you can go see the chimney on the other side as well, or the chase. It'll look like a chimney, but really it's just a house for the chimney. This whole thing will be lined with drywall because it's fire resistant, and you have to be 2 inches from combustibles. cannot wait to get the windows in here. It's just so high. So high, and it's creepy. I'm not worried about myself though, I'm just worried about the kids. And I can't imagine putting that roof on. I watch them and it's just crazy. After they get the drywall into the chases today, they're going to start working on the siding on the barn. Finally have that. So I'll show you what we ended up going with. In boring news, septic is in. So this is cedar that was made from old telephone poles. It smells really good. It smells really good. And this certainly isn't all of it. They'll also be making some batten strips. So it'll come together and then the strips will cover all the seams. And whether or not we'll let this age or paint it, or maybe both, maybe we'll let it age just due to time constraints and then paint it. I don't know. I am thinking we want a red barn though, eventually. Here are the windows for the barn. Now these are pretty cheap windows. We're not conditioning the space, so we just went with some fixed windows, and they're not true divided light, which basically just means that these are just on here and they're not individual built-in panels of glass, but they have the grids over them to at least look like it. And we'll paint them and frame them out, and they'll go in all of those window spots that I showed you before. We're still missing one up here in this end. Then we'll frame in a loft here and a bathroom and add some barn doors, you know, just a few things to do. This is the back of we're gonna call this the car barn. So it's got the 3 windows, you know, the staircase is right there, however that works. These are the pocket doors that will go in this opening here. When you walk through the front door, that's where those will sit. Then we also got the opening framed for, it was just open before, and then you'll actually go through that. It won't have a door. I'm going to make my kids a very quick lunch. I had some ground beef already thawed out, so I'm gonna put 3 pounds of that here in my large cast iron skillet and add some coconut aminos, which is a great substitute for soy sauce. If you don't want to do soy, it's a really great substitute. It tastes just the same. Some brown sugar, some fresh ginger, and garlic. If you don't have time, which I was borderline whether or not I had time today, but I did have the garlic and the ginger from a recipe I did a few weeks back, and then I always have garlic. Putting that in while the beef is browning makes it really flavorful. I just put my ginger right in my garlic press. Now it doesn't exactly work, it more just pushes out fresh ginger juice, but it adds so much flavor to this instead of just adding powdered ginger. We love this Korean beef recipe. It's fast to make, easy to serve. I find that with a lot of children, there are certain meals that are fast to make, but maybe really difficult to serve to a lot of little people. And then there are certain meals that are the opposite of that. Like I would say homemade pizza. It's annoying to make. It's not this super fast thing. Like you better have a little bit of time, but it's easy to serve. Once you throw it on the table, everybody just grabs a slice. And then there are some meals that are both, and that would be anything ground beef and rice related, something that you can put in a bowl. The only thing I'd recommend you do is serve the children outside, because rice isn't fun to clean up because it gets sticky against the floor and you really can't sweep it until it's dried. And then ground beef, just lots of little parts, and nobody wants to clean all of that up. I'll bring the dog in for an occasion like that, but I'd rather just do it outside. We have about an hour and a half till we'd like to eat dinner. I have a roast that's thawed out in the refrigerator. So this is my summer go-to. I am constantly just throwing roast in the Instant Pot because I can walk away and then when it's tender and ready, serve it alongside of a lot of things that we keep on hand. So things like chips, shredded cheese, salsa, sauerkraut, sliced jalapenos. There's just all kinds of things that you can put out with a nice roast. Today, we also have several ripe avocados. All of my children just love guacamole, so I can make a really large batch of that. That'll stretch the meal even more. I don't have lime juice, but I often just add lemon juice to guacamole. It makes it to where it doesn't brown, and then it's also really good. Like you can't really tell when it's all said and done whether it was lemon juice or lime juice. I add garlic powder and salt, and then I'm just gonna cover this guacamole and walk away until this roast is done. A storm rolled in, so the lighting is constantly changing in my kitchen. It's getting quite dark. I'm glad we were able to get our swim time in while we could today. It's been quite a rainy July. While I do have a few moments here in the kitchen after prepping dinner, and it's mostly a dinner that can just work the rest of the way on its own, I am going to get some bread going for tomorrow. This is something that's in my routine fairly regularly, whether it's bagels or my favorite sourdough boule, which you can find on farmhouseonboone.com by searching No Knead loaf. It's my favorite. A lot of you love the beginner loaf even more. It's actually my most popular recipe, but I fall back again and again on the no knead loaf, except the changes I make, I do half hard white wheat and half all-purpose. This is a perfect little compromise for me because it still makes a crusty sourdough boule, but it also has whole grain. So though it would be better for me and for all of us if it was 100% whole grain, I just love the way this bakes up when there's some all-purpose in it as well. You can get away either way, so depending on your convictions. There are certain recipes that perform better with more whole grain content. Honestly, I find bagels are one of those examples. My older girls are usually the bakers in the family. They were volunteering at Vacation Bible School this whole week, but all of my sons really wanted cookies, and it's been a while since we've made dessert. It kind of fell off the menu for the summer for the most part. I think that's just because we've been so busy and in and out of the house, which it's funny having a YouTube channel because I love helping you all in the kitchen and I show things that I'm making. And so it looks like I'm just always in the kitchen, but that's mostly just because I'm not filming when I'm not in the kitchen. I milled up some spelt berries, and this cookie recipe that I'm doing, it's a brown butter cookie recipe. I'm doing that because our mixer broke, and so it's easier to mix up melted butter than it is to cream together sugar and butter that isn't melted. Now this recipe called for 3 cups of flour. So instead of doing 3 cups of all-purpose, I did 1 cup of all-purpose, and then I did my 140 gram conversion like I do with no matter what kind of grain I'm using. So today I used spelt, and I did 280 grams, which is 140 each, for the other 2 cups of flour. I find this conversion works really well when you're just trying to sub out whole grain in any recipe. Now, of course, the thing to remember is that if it's a dough that is developing gluten, like you're kneading it or stretching and folding it, and you want it to rise, you use a hard berry. And if it is something like cookies or muffins or scones, you can use, honestly, any berry works for that. But that's where you can get away with using some of those ancient grains like einkorn and spelt and kamut because they have a different kind of gluten content, and that's totally okay when baking something like pie crust and cookies, whereas with bread, that's a bit more difficult to work with. Cookies are a really forgiving place to use whole grains. They're sweet and delicious, and kids don't seem to notice at all that they're any different. Underbake them, that's my big key. I make sure that they're not hard. Err on the side of them being gooey. Serve them with a big glass of milk, and nobody even remotely questions whether or not it was whole grain or all-purpose. Indistinguishable, at least to a child. I mean, I can tell the difference, but It's a worth it difference because you're getting whole grains in something that maybe otherwise would be considered a junk food. I do not consider homemade cookies to be a junk food when they're made with whole grain flour and quality ingredients. Another way that whole grain baking can go wrong is not adding enough flour, especially if you're not weighing it and it's freshly milled and it's fluffy. Your cookies will spread out. So I also err on the side of on a little bit too much flour and a little underbake. If I'm gonna err, that's where I try to err. I have a bunch of little boys and a husband that are going to fully clean this kitchen tonight, and this mama is gonna put up her feet.